Welcome to We Are Women, Unapologetically, the podcast that talks about the good, bad, ugly, and awesome. Careers, life transitions, confidence, and everything in between. Because shift happens, but you don't have to do it alone.
I want you to take a deep breath for me for just a minute, because what I'm about to share with you should stop and make you think. In 2024, 43% of adults said that they felt more anxious than they did the previous year. That is up from 37% in 2023. But listen to this. 21.4% of women reported experiencing anxiety symptoms compared to 14.8% of men. But here's what those statistics don't tell you. They do not tell you that the real reason that you can't slow down isn't because you don't have time. It is because slowing down feels dangerous. You tell yourself you'll rest when the project is done, when the kids are older, when things calm down. But honey, if you're being honest, that moment, it never comes. Because for women like you, rest isn't a reward, it's a risk. And today, we are going to talk about why your nervous system has been lying to you about stillness and what you can do instead. Welcome to We Are Women Unapologetically, the podcast where we strip away the titles, the performance, the pressure, and we talk about what is really going on underneath it all. I am your host, Jessica Cumming, and today's episode is about to get uncomfortably real and deeply personal. Because today we are talking about something that is impacting nearly half of all women right now, but nobody wants to name it. The addiction to motion, otherwise known as running from the stillness. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, Jessica, I am just busy, you stop. This is not about your calendar. This is not about your to-do list. This is about what you are afraid will happen if you ever stop doing. Because here's the truth. 18% of adults are affected by anxiety disorders, and work-related stress, it's one of the biggest contributors. But do you know what's even worse? Most of you aren't even trying to fix the anxiety. You are trying to outrun it. And by the time I'm done today, you are going to understand just why that is killing you and exactly what you can do instead. So I'm going to start with a question that's going to follow us through this entire conversation. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. When was the last time that you sat for more than 5 minutes without reaching for your phone, opening your laptop, or finding something to quickly organize? I'm waiting. If you're like most women, you don't remember. And it's not because you are lazy or undisciplined. It is because you have been conditioned to believe that stillness equals stagnation. We are not just worried. We are systematically destroying our nervous systems. And you know what? We are doing it on purpose. Do you want to know why? Because somewhere along the way, you have been conditioned. You have been programmed to learn that your value is tied to your output. You have learned that to be seen, you had to be doing. To be valued, you had to be producing. To be worthy, you had to be constantly proving yourself. And I know. I've been there. I have lived it. Let me tell you about the day that I was not living my life. I was producing for everyone else. I was in corporate. I was traveling constantly, picking up the pieces that other people had dropped. I was training teams across the globe, taking on roles that weren't even mine. I went so far as to change my personal travel plans and risked missing my high school class reunion in Australia. I traveled to 3 countries within 48 hours. I was exhausted, but I did it because that's what I thought you had to do to get ahead. During that time, I had been doing what so many of you are doing or have done. I had turned busyness into a drug, a way to feel important, a way to avoid the scary questions, and a way to never have to sit with the parts of you that feel uncertain, unfinished, or afraid. But here's the thing about drugs. The effectiveness wears off and eventually they stop working. And then you need more just to feel normal. So you take on more projects, you say yes to more requests, you pile on more responsibilities because the alternative, the silence, it feels like failure. But what if I told you that your addiction to motion is actually what is keeping you stuck? What if I told you that every time you fill that space with another task, another commitment, another crisis to solve, you, my dear, are stealing from your future self? And here's where it's going to get really uncomfortable, but I want to share with you where this pattern actually comes from, and it's going to hurt. I was probably 7 years old when I realized that I had to earn my place in the world. Both my parents were always working, always busy, always doing something more important than just being with me. I remember one day I wanted to talk to my mom, and I honestly don't even remember what I wanted to talk to her about, but she was busy. She was busy with customers, then she was working on a crafting class, and then she was handling something else. Finally, in frustration, after not being able to have her undivided attention, I asked her, do I need to make an appointment to see my own mother? 7 years old, asking for an appointment to see my mom. And you know what? That is the moment that I learned that busy equaled important, that availability equals weakness, that love has to be scheduled. And so I became busy too. Because if busy was the love language in my house, then I was going to be fluent. And maybe that's your story too. Maybe you have learned that your value comes from your usefulness, that rest was selfish, that boundaries were weak. Here is what nobody talks about. For high achieving women, slowing down, it can feel like dying. Not literally, but energetically, spiritually, and professionally. Because we have been taught the moment we stop moving, that is the moment we become irrelevant, invisible, and replaceable. And the statistics, they back up that fear. Women are nearly 1.5 times more likely to experience anxiety compared to men. We are not just tired, we are terrified of what happens if we step off that hamster wheel and stand in the stillness. But here is what I need you to understand. That fear, it's not facts. It is programming. You have been programmed to believe that rest is lazy, boundaries are selfish, and saying no is weakness. But sis, what if the opposite is true? What if the reason you can't slow down isn't because you're strong? It's because you're scared. Think about it. When you are constantly moving, you never have to face the grief you hadn't processed. Acknowledge the dreams you've abandoned. Admit that maybe, just maybe, you're not as happy as you pretend to be. You don't have to confront the relationships that drain you, and you don't have to question whether the life you have built is actually the life that you want. So you stay busy, you stay distracted, you stay safe. But here's the brutal truth. Safety is an illusion. And the longer you avoid the stillness, the louder it gets. And this is where most women stop. They acknowledge the problem, but they don't know what to do about it. They think they just need better time management or more boundaries. But what if I told you that the solution isn't about doing less? What if it is redefining what productivity actually means? I want to lovingly challenge your definition of productive because I have coached enough high-achieving women to know this. Somewhere along the way, we have confused being busy with being valuable. You don't feel worthy unless you're fixing something, cleaning something, helping someone, or checking off a list. But what if productivity can mean something else entirely? What if being productive also meant taking a 30-minute walk without your phone? Saying no to that thing that you've said yes to only out of guilt. blocking off an hour to just breathe, cry, reflect, or simply be. What if your value didn't come from your doing, but from your being? Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, Jessica, this is so beautiful in theory, but I have bills to pay. I have people counting on me, and I can't just stop. Sis, I get it. I really, truly do. Because 2 years ago, I would have said the exact same thing. But here's what I've learned. The world doesn't fall apart when you choose yourself. In fact, it honestly gets better. Rest isn't just useful, it is required. Rest recalibrates your nervous system. Stillness reconnects you to yourself. Quiet clears the path so your next steps aren't just reaction, they're aligned. And when you do that, you start to shift from survival mode to strategy for sustainable success. You know that your best ideas, your clearest decisions, and deepest truths don't come when you're maxed out. They come in the margins, in the pause, in the silence that you used to run from. Now, if you're thinking this is great, but what will actually happen when I slow down? Because that's the scary part, isn't it? Stick with me. This is exactly what I want to talk about next, because this is where most people get stuck. So what does actually happen when you finally slow down? When you finally pause, and I mean really pause. Not the kind where you're scrolling through your phone or planning tomorrow's meetings. I mean the kind where you sit with yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your truth. I'll tell you, you cry in the car over a podcast that hits just a little too hard or close to home. You snap at your partner because they asked you what's for dinner. You sit down to rest and your mind starts racing. Everything you haven't dealt with, it comes rushing in like a tidal wave. It is not weakness. That, my dear, is emotional backlog. It's every single thing that you have been stuffing into your later box for months, maybe even years. It's the grief you haven't processed, decisions you've been avoiding, anger you never allowed yourself to feel. That tiny voice whispering, is this really the life that I wanted? And here's the thing. Here's why most women give up on rest. Because it feels worse before it feels better. We are taught to shove it down, smile through it, keep going. But when you finally pause, it all catches up. This is why so many high-achieving women have breakdowns over things that seem small. The woman who had the breakdown at Target because they were out of her favorite coffee, honey, that's not about coffee. That is about 3 years of ignored burnout finally demanding attention. The woman who was crying in the parking lot after a meeting, it's not about that meeting. It is about the 6 months of saying yes when she meant and wanted to say no. The woman who feels like she's going crazy because she can't stop thinking, that is not crazy. That is her soul trying to tell her something important. But stillness is not your enemy. Stillness is the truth with the volume turned up. And when you can sit through it without trying to numb it, escape it, or edit it, that is where the healing begins. But here is something I wish someone would have told me. You do not have to do this alone. And you don't have to figure it out all at once. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is give yourself permission to feel it all. To let the tears come, to sit with the discomfort without trying to fix it. This happened to me not too long ago, and I want to share it with you because it perfectly illustrates everything that we've been talking about today. And it might just change how you think about rest. A few months ago, I planned a trip to the beach, but here's what made this trip different. 2 weeks before I left, I made a decision that quite honestly terrified me. I decided to intentionally let the balls drop. I decided I wasn't going to have podcasts, emails, or social media posts for almost 2 weeks. I didn't reschedule the trip or a podcast interview because of a client emergency. I didn't bring my laptop just in case. I didn't check email every few hours to make sure everything was okay. I just left. And you know what happened? The world didn't end. My business didn't collapse. My clients didn't fire me. But something else happened. Something I wasn't exactly prepared for. That trip wasn't just strategic timing. It landed right on my mother's birthday. She passed away when I was 31. And most people don't know this, but we hadn't spoken in years. We had a falling out because of what happens when you mix family and business. We had just started to repair our relationship less than 3 months before she passed away unexpectedly. She left behind a lot of questions surrounding her death, a lot of baggage, and a lot of debt. But she also left behind questions that I still carry about our relationship. What if we would have started talking sooner? What would she think of the Texas coast that I now love so much? What would she think of the life, the business, and the community I'm building? More importantly, where would our relationship be today? When she died, I didn't grieve right away, not properly. I didn't know how. Instead, I grieved over years, in different forms, at different times, but I never gave myself permission to just sit with it. That trip, it wasn't about running away. It was about choosing stillness intentionally. It was about creating a sacred pause to remember her, to honor her, to sit in the water and let the silence say all of the things that I didn't get to. I allowed myself to feel her loss, to say her name, to remember her laugh, her smile, and her eyes that would say so much more than her words ever could. And then I allowed myself to cry without needing to explain to anyone why. And then for the first time in years, I fully let myself be in the stillness. You know what happened? I truly started to dream again. I started dreaming about what season 2 of this podcast could look like, how I want JC New Beginnings to evolve, and how to make a more meaningful impact on women's lives. I started wondering how I can serve deeper, better, more boldly, and what kind of legacy that I want to leave behind. And in that moment, something holy happened. Because I wasn't trying to please, I wasn't trying to fix, I was just being. But here's the thing that changed everything for me. When I came back from that trip, I realized something. I realized that I had been approaching my business, my relationships, my entire life from a place of pushing for results, pushing through resilience, pushing past boundaries. But in that stillness, by the water, I realized I didn't need to keep pushing. I needed to keep asking what my clients really need, asking how I can better serve them, asking what's really the right next step to empower them. And when I started asking instead of pushing, everything changed. That is why this episode exists, because I know that you have been avoiding your version of the beach. And I want to show you that it is not only safe to go there, it's necessary. But going there requires something that most of us were never taught. It requires redefining what strength actually looks like. Here is something I need you to hear. Something that you have probably been told your whole life, maybe even said it yourself. Strong women don't fall apart. That's crap. You know it's actually strong. Admitting when you're falling apart before you completely shatter. We have been programmed to believe that strength means endurance. It means never breaking, never resting, and never asking for help. And the world rewards us for it. You get praised for working through illness. You get promoted for staying late. You get called reliable for never saying no. During that time, I was in corporate and it happened. I finally got the promotion, the one I had been literally killing myself for. The one I had sacrificed my sleep, my relationships, my peace of mind for. You know what I was told? Better do it again next year, or they'll find someone else to do it cheaper in a different country. But here is what they do not tell you. That is not strength. That is survival. And there's a difference. That was the moment that I realized I was undervalued, underappreciated, and it was time to move on. No matter how much I performed, no matter how much I proved myself, no matter how much I loved that job, and I really did, that it would never, ever be enough. Strength isn't about how much you can carry. It is about knowing when to put the load down. It is about knowing when to rest. Strength is not about how much you can endure. It is about knowing what you shouldn't even have to endure in the first place. Real strength is not about how busy you can be. It is about protecting your peace like your life depends on it, because, honey, I'm telling you, it does. Real strength isn't about proving your worth through your productivity. It is about knowing that your worth exists whether you produce anything or not. And love is not conditional. If people only show up when you're producing, that is not love, that is exploitation. Real love doesn't disappear when you set boundaries. Real love doesn't punish you for prioritizing your well-being. Real love does not make you earn your worth through exhaustion. If someone only shows up when you are useful to them, honey, that is not a relationship, that is not a friendship, and you deserve better. If this is speaking to you and you are ready, if you are truly ready to start sitting with the stillness, I need to be honest with you. This work of unraveling all of the shoulds is freaking hard, especially for the fixers, especially for the women who have been holding it all together for so long that they have forgotten what it feels like to be held. We are the ones that hold it all together, the ones who catch the pieces when things fall apart. But sis, what if we started building a life where nothing had to fall apart? Where you did not have to pick up the pieces because you created a foundation that was built on truth, not performance? What if the truest strength is knowing when to put it down and walk away? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's not quitting. That is choosing. That's not lazy. That, my dear, is loving yourself unconditionally. And when you do that, when you finally allow yourself to be present with what is rather than what you're avoiding, that is when the real healing begins. That is when you stop managing your life and start living it. So if you're ready to actually make the shift, if you are done with the endless cycle of doing, here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to go cold turkey. You need to go consciously and gently. You need a safety plan for stillness. So I'm going to walk you through one. Step 1, stop one thing. Not delegate it, not postpone it, just stop. Choose one responsibility, task, or commitment and take it off your plate fully. Step 2, sit in the discomfort. The guilt will come up, the anxiety. You will start to wonder, am I allowed to do this? I am here to tell you, yes, you are. You are not in danger. You are just detoxing from overfunctioning. Step 3, instead of jumping into another task, try this. Breathe, journal, cry, scream into your pillow. Do nothing with intention. Let your nervous system learn that being still doesn't mean being unsafe. Step 4, create a rhythm, a playlist for your evening walk, a favorite tea you only sip slowly, a journal that lives on your nightstand. Let your nervous system know that stillness isn't dangerous. It's actually pretty divine. Step 5, practice asking instead of pushing. Instead of forcing your way through, ask what is really needed. Ask what would serve you best. Ask what would feel most aligned. Ask what you can walk away from. I'm telling you, the answers will surprise you. Stillness isn't weak. Stillness is a strategy. And if you want help on this journey, the Unapologetic Daily Journal will help you reconnect with your truth. The Shift Happens Power Pivot Toolkit will help you turn reflection into realignment. And if you're ready for more than just a download, book a strategy session with me. I have limited slots available right now, and I have created this work not just for the woman that I am now, but for the version of me that thought burnout was the price of ambition, who thought slowing down was a luxury she couldn't afford, who thought peace was for other people. And if that's where you're at right now, I see you. And I need you to know you don't need permission. But if you have been waiting for a sign, this is it. Stop waiting until things calm down. Stop waiting until someone else validates your rest. Stop waiting to feel like you have earned it. You do not have to earn peace. You just have to be willing to choose it over and over again. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who needs to hear this message. Tag me in it. Let's start a conversation about what we can find and the peace that we can actually bring out of the stillness. Until next time, stay fierce, stay bold, but most importantly, stay unapologetically you.